So, I wanted to talk to y'all about comfort reads today because this weekend I found myself going to one of my comfort reads. Now, as a grown adult, as an educated grown adult, and a pretty intelligent one, it might surprise you to learn that most of my go-to comfort reads are like children's books, and not even like teenager books, like children's books. And there's a couple different reasons for this. One of the reasons is because they tend to be shorter. So I can pick them up and in an afternoon go from start to finish or get enough of what I need from that world to kind of get that internal hug that I need from that particular piece of material. Another reason is because it tends to be more whimsical, a little less real, and a lot of the reasons for turning to a comfort read is because the real world is getting a little bit too real and we want to escape a little bit. So children's fiction really lends itself to escapism. So big fan. And also, I don't really want to think too hard or look up new words or do anything like that when it comes to a quote-unquote comfort read. So again, going for something that skews a little bit younger tends to work a little bit better for me. I'm just a fan of whimsy in general. So children's books, preteen books, fantasy books, that whole section of the library really appeals to me. And that doesn't necessarily, grab a lot of people, but I really feel like if you have an afternoon next to a pool and you read like The Wind in the Willows, you're having a better day. You know what I mean? So this Saturday, I found myself rereading The Little Prince. So life continues to life. So we continue to cope with that the best we can. And this Saturday, I decided to revisit The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupery. I'm terrible at French and I apologize. But this little nugget, you may recognize this is a fairly famous image. And it took an hour to reread this, and I don't remember the last time I read this start to finish, but there's something different about reading things that are meant for children as adults. And, the little lessons that we want to teach our kids are the same lessons that we need reinforcement on. There's a lot of talks about connection in this particular book, about fitting in. There's a few little bits in here. And so if you're having a bad day and you feel the need to add a little comfort read to your list, but you don't want to be too taxed and you don't want to take it too seriously, but you do want to have a little bit of a moment, The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupery. So I read this on Saturday, took an hour, and it was just a lovely little breath of fresh air. So again, a lot of my comfort reads tend to skew towards children's fiction because it just makes you feel better about your life, and we're going through enough, and why add on top of that too much if we don't need to. Now, on that note, I will say that after reading The Little Prince, I did go into The Life and Times of Cicero, but that's because I'm a special kind of human being. But again, comfort reads, children's books, starting off strong with The Little Prince. And yeah, having reread that this weekend, it was just really, really lovely, and lots of good notes to get by as an adult. Like I said in the beginning, my first kind of go-to comfort read is The Wind in the Willows. I've read this, I don't know how many times, a bajillion probably, and, well, that's not true, because most of the time I stop after they get into his little caravan, his little surrey with a fringe on top or whatever. And they like go out adventuring, and I stop before the weasels start weaseling because that's anxiety that I don't need. However, the beginning where the weasel, or not the weasel, the little mole guy just abandons his family and goes and plays house with Mr. Rat, and they go on picnics. Like that couple of chapters of just in the beginning, they meet and then they do nothing but just go on picnics in the sunshine and it's lovely. Like, just the first couple of chapters will give you enough of a soul hug to get you through probably like 2 more weeks of winter. You know what I mean? Like, it's just such a lovely little book. And then you meet Mr. Toad, who's just a chaos goblin, and I personally love a chaos goblin, you know, being one myself, and I just really appreciate it. But again, just that first 2 chapters of Mr. Mole finding Mr. Rat and becoming best friends, and then they hang out with Badger for a hot minute, and then they go, like, adventuring with Mr. Toad. Like, it's lovely. The world of the wind and the willows is a lovely little form of escapism. And again, if we're doing the whole comfort read thing, we just stop before the weasels start weaseling. Like, we don't need to know that they totally took over Toad Hall. We don't need to know that there was a whole battle to get them back. Like, nobody needs that in their lives. Like, we can just do picnics by the riverside and have the best day. So yeah, highly recommend The Wind in the Willows. Fun fact, the first book that I read cover to cover in one day was The Wizard of Oz. And I was like, I don't know, like 9. So over the years, I've had many versions of The Wizard of Oz. And with a lot of my like comfort books that I like have a relationship with, I do have like the bibliophile tendency to have multiple versions of that book. So over the years, and right now, I do have multiple versions of The Wizard of Oz. I think when I was talking about my audiobook and that kind of reading by listening video that I did, I talked about the fact that I just found Anne Hathaway reading The Wizard of Oz, and she does it so lovely. And it's such a fun little book. And again, it's the perfect, like, quote-unquote reading level where it gives you enough story with enough depth that it gives you a good time, but it doesn't challenge you too much where it takes you out of your comfort zone, but it still gives you a good story. Now, this particular copy of this book is so cute, and it's got, like, a bunch of, you know how I love a cute book. So it does have, like, some memorabilia. Fun fact, in the book, the shoes are silver. I don't know where those red things came from. Probably from film tests. But, like, it's such a pretty little book with all these pretty little pictures in it. And this is based off of, if anybody knows, the original illustrations by L. Frank Baum, which is fun. A lot of people have poked a lot of different ideas at The Wizard of Oz, and I love it. Continue to do it. I'll buy all of it. I have a real problem. But yeah, The Wizard of Oz is a wonderful, wonderful story to get lost in for a weekend, for an afternoon. The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. So I am going to take a moment to show off some of the different versions of The Wizard of Oz that I have, because I'm that girl. And you're on my time. So I do have a couple of the paperback versions, and I don't have like all of them, but I have still The Lost Princess of Oz, and the Tin Woodsman of Oz, because those two were some of my favorite ones. So those were some of the ones that I've reread a lot, and I've lost a couple along the way just by like lending books out and whatever. And I also have this beautiful monster. Look at how pretty she is. So this is just all of the works of L. Frank Baum, because again, I am a monster. So this is book 1 of 3, and I have a problem because my books don't match. For those of you who are bibliophiles, you understand. So this is book 1, and this is book 2. Not the same. Like the same, but not the same. Okay, well that's book 3, actually. Okay. So book 1, book 2. So this is the rest of the Oz Chronicles. And then the rest of the Wonder Tales by L. Frank Baum are in this book. So 2 out of the 3 of my books match for my compilation of all of the works for L. Frank Baum, which is a bummer. But this one is my favorite. So if anybody like sees this particular edition for sale, and they see in particular volumes 2 and volume 3, like, send a girl a link. Like, look how cute they are. Because I love a map. Anything with a map, I don't know what it is about. It's escapism is what it is. But I just love it. I just love it. This is just pure text, these big ones. Again, most compilations are just pure text, so it's not as much fun as some of the other editions that I have where you get to play with the pictures. But, you know, what are you going to do? Yeah, so even on the paperbacks that I have, you get some of those fabulous original artworks from L. Frank Baum. And that's, I mean, part of the fun of children's books, I think, is just you get to see what somebody else sees in their head about what's going on. And I just love that. Look how silly. So fun. So, yeah, the Wizard of Oz comfort books, love it. If you're looking for an audio edition, like I said, I just found the Anne Hathaway reading it on the Audible, and she does a great job, which is fantastic. One of the other kind of comfort reads that I tend to go to is The Secret Garden. And my auntie got me this copy. So again, with the books that I tend to read over and over and over, I tend to have like fancy fun copies of them. So this is my fancy fun copy of The Secret Garden. And I reread this, like 6 months ago, something like that, over a week. And it was just really, really nice. Just a nice little hug of a read. So I don't know what it is about children's books, and like is it part nostalgia? Like, I don't know what it is, but it's fantastic. In the last like 6-ish years, I would say I probably really got into them like starting at the pandemic. I don't know if y'all know about the His Dark Materials trilogy by Phillip Pullman. A lot of people know the first book, The Golden Compass. It was a movie and it had Nicole Kidman in it and she looked gorgeous. I don't know how well it did. It's also a new like HBO series that I haven't watched yet. They've tried to do a few different things with this series because it's fantastic. But I do think that you have to read them in order for the translated world on the screen to make sense. So even if you just read The Golden Compass just by itself is wonderful. It's like a whole other world. It's great. When you get into number 2 and number 3, which is The Subtle Knife and the Amber Spyglass, that's when it starts getting into legitimate theology and philosophy, and you start really questioning the multi-universe theory and time theory and string theory, and a lot of those questions get posed. Life after death. If you guys have seen The Good Place, the television show with what's-her-face, the blonde cute girl, a lot of those types of questions are posed in books 2 and 3. And book 1 is a lot more just introducing you into the story, and it's super fun. Now, Phillip Pullman did fully explore this world, and there's like 9 or 10 different books, and I have a couple of them, and they're fantastic. So if you, like me, read these books and go, oh my gosh, this makes me think about like how the universe works, how life after death works. Now let's talk about like quantum theory and string theory, because I have questions, y'all. There are other books. I did finish the Book of Dust, which is like a precursor to this series, and it's fantastic. And then I'm working on Serpentine right now. So there's a lot to explore in that world. And for me, it's comfort because I have just wrapped it into my normal, like, favorite stories kind of folder. But it doesn't necessarily hold the same nostalgia. It's a lot more in-depth, a lot more intellectual than some of the other stories. A lot of the other stories are just, you know, let's kind of wash your brain a little bit, have a little bit of a hug for your soul, and then move on with your day. That series is a little bit more comfort for the way that life can be and how you can see the world working. So it's comfort on a much deeper, much more intellectual level, but because it is still geared toward like preteen type people, it's pretty even keeled as far as reading is concerned. It's just as much as you can handle in one sitting, because sometimes you do want to take a break because it does make you think, and there's enough in the world to make you think. So sometimes you just want to read a couple chapters about a couple animals on a riverbank and move on with your life. Sometimes you want to completely rethink the world, and that's a really good series for it, the His Dark Material series. Now, as far as like grown-up comfort books, I am a tried and true favorite of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Again, this being one of my favorite comfort books, have gone through many different versions of this. I did have a paperback version. I don't know where that version went. I now have this version of it, which is like a Barnes & Noble version of it. I also recently just got this really pretty version of it when I went to the LA book fair. Look how pretty it is. So pretty. Look how pretty my book is. Ugh, I love a pretty book. I don't know why I do, but it's just, it brings me so much joy. And I also listen to the audio version of that far more than I should. Not every night, almost every night. It's a lot. But Rosamund Pike does a audible version of it, and she does such a great job. So again, if you just want to read chapter 44 when she goes to Pemberley and Elizabeth is like, oh, actually, turns out if you yell at a man and tell him what he needs to fix about himself, sometimes they listen and then they fix themselves. And then they go out of their way to show you what they've done to improve their character because they've decided that actually, yes, they should be a better man. Thank you for pointing that out. Elizabeth Darcy. So good. So that is like a K classic comfort read. A newer comfort read that I found in the last couple of years is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandanna. Sorry. This book is so cute. It's so cute. I can't stand it. It's the cutest. It's like one of those cozy reads that you just love. It's fantastic. It is a little bit longer, but it goes by really quickly. Again, the Audible version is really good. I've listened to the Audible version as well because when I find something that I like, I kind of listen to it or read it over and over and over and over and over because I want to get all of the levels and all of the meanings. And so if you like witchcraft and adorable men and couples and that whole like enemies to lovers kind of vibe, A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. It's so cute. So, yeah, for my comfort reads, I usually go for children's books, but sometimes I do throw an adult theme around. So, I don't know what y'all read for your comfort books, but those are some of my go-tos. And let me know. Love you, bye.